Hello, I'm Michaela. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. Today, once again, we are here to continue talking about Requiem of the Rose King, episodes 10 through 12. And if you haven't already checked out the first two episodes, check those out and I'll put them in the description box below. So let's jump right into this. Episode 10. We start with Edward practicing his swordsmanship, if you can tell with the lazy animation. Edward is still referring to Richard as a woman, respect people's pronouns, thankfully, and is referring to Richard as a he. Anne and Edward don't love each other, but a friendship develops. The Yorks and the Lancasters are battling once again. Warwick is leading the charge on the Lancaster side, but eventually, Warwick learns that George has gone back to his brother's side. What we don't get to see in the anime is young Warwick admiring the young Duke of York, Richard's father. But then, eventually I do learn that it is put in there, it's just at a later time. But we'll see. So we'll go back to that when it comes to that. Okay. Back to the battle. Richard sees nothing but red. However, the fog is so thick that the people can easily mistake allies as enemies, and people might lose their way. Something that was censored in the anime was how Richard took the enemy's cloak for his plan. In the manga, he throws a sword at the soldier's neck and then he goes down. Richard suggests Buckingham takes his place while he charges the enemy with his new comrades. He gets the enemy to fight themselves. Back to Edward and Warwick. Warwick talks about how he was the one who taught Edward swordsmanship. They do include the little flashback showing that, but it could have been better. I like the manga version better, of course. More censorship. Buckingham strikes him down in the neck and almost making it look like his head was gonna come off. But in the anime, you hear a slash sound and he goes down. There's no blood on his sword. We get that flashback with young Warwick and young Duke of York after Edward finds Warwick on the verge of death. More censorship. The boy that was running away since he was called a York, he got killed by his comrade. He sliced his head off and blood splattered all over Henry in the manga. In the manga, it made it seem like he was struck at his back. I don't know how I said this. But it will show you. Lastly, at the end of the episode, Henry and Richard figure out who each other's true identities are. And now on to episode 11. The aftermath of Richard finding out Henry's true identity, he's not taking it well. In the manga, you could really tell how Richard was upset, and for one thing, he slapped Catesby, giving him a cut or bruise on his face, while the anime just had Richard grab his shirt. Then we have Edward asking Buckingham if he knows who killed Warwick. This was cut and not included in the anime. Edward tells Buckingham to send a woman to Richard to make him feel better. Of course, he thinks women are the answer to everything. But what I really want to focus on is how we see how Richard truly loves Henry. He was dreaming about him, and more of how he has to protect his secret from people. Moving on, I'd say this is lazy animation. The Yorks and the Lancasters will be fighting once again since Henry was captured again. The next image was Richard holding a white rose, and now compared to the manga version, and Richard was more distressed and had more emotion to him. Again, manga versions are better when it comes to expressing emotions. The anime has its moments, but the manga is the winner. Okay, and lastly, talk about episode 12. The Yorks are celebrating victory and Edward has officially become king. Richard, of course, is not okay. He wants to have a talk with Henry but isn't allowed since his illness or mental health is getting worse. Henry cannot talk and he doesn't know who he is. Then Richard's inner demons are coming out and overwhelming him. In the manga, I would have liked these manga panels better represented in the anime. Plus, they added words that weren't necessary. Anyway, Cecily comes into the picture and is happy to see George and Edward. Edward says, "Let mother embrace you." And Cecily says they already did. They cut that part out where she meets Richard. She was the catalyst that started his negative thoughts. Step outside. Plus, we miss out on a close-up they did in the manga showing how far he's fallen. I will say that the expression he had when he was about to face Henry face to face in the tower is not bad. It looks pretty similar to what we see in the manga, but you can tell me which one looks better to you. Moving on, they censor what people have been waiting for, even though it was heartbreaking. The kiss between Richard and Henry, they made it look like it was a warm embrace or just hovering over him. Then we have Cecily telling Edward that he doesn't know Richard's true self and he's a demon child. Eventually, then we have the conversations between Edward and Richard, where he basically wants Richard to kill Henry in secret. But this conversation was cut short. In the manga, when Edward is talking about fabric and sees how it looks on Richard, but then he says it reminded him of the time Richard dressed in women's clothes. Then he says, they say demons have both male and female sex, and Richard cuts him off and wants to move on just like me. More censoring of another kiss between Richard and Henry. It was censored with a sword. Could have been worse, I guess. But the manga version, more beautiful. And here's a montage of manga panels that show the proper affection they have for each other and the inner turmoil Henry has, and etc., etc. The last 5 to 6 minutes of the episode is how Volume 8 starts. I'm going to tell you what happens. George and Isabel are now together. Isabel has Anne acting as a stable boy to conceal her identity so people can't get can't get her fortune, sorry. But eventually Edward has Richard and marries Anne. The end of that. Because then, in the next video, I'll be talking about episodes 13 through 10, and that is a time skip. So look forward to that. And that's the end. That's all I'm going to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you comment down below your favorite parts of the manga that I maybe left out, or the episodes that I talked about. I'm Michaela, and I will see you later. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. Bye.